All Might versus All for One just went nuclear as the world's greatest hero prepares to sacrifice everything for the next generation. All for One has become unhinged, and All Might is trying to use that to his advantage. But All for One's current state of mind could just as easily bring about the destruction of All Might, Deku, and all of Japan. The MHA climax is insane, so let's get into it. You guys know how this works. If you enjoy my MHA content and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now. It helps me out a lot with that YouTube algorithm. And if you want to help us attain Quirk Awakening on this channel by hitting 2 million subscribers, do me a big favor and subscribe right now. We are approaching that 2 million mark and every single subscription counts. Finally, this video will of course contain Boku no Hero manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. In the previous chapter, All Might donned his superpower Iron Man armor and became Iron Might. This armor is cutting-edge tech created by David and Melissa Shield, and it was specifically designed to allow the now quirkless All Might to fight powerful multiple quirk users like All for One. The armor has a whole bunch of special abilities that are actually based on the quirks possessed by Deku and All Might's other students. And so, the armor effectively allows All Might to use the equivalent of multiple quirks at the same time. We saw him using abilities similar to Deku's Black Whip, Sero's Tape, Sato's Sugar Rush, and Kaminari's Electrification. All Might's strategy is to use multiple unique abilities in combination with each other in order to outsmart and outmaneuver All for One, and so far he's been doing an effective job. All Might also knows that All for One is currently far less calm and far more emotionally unstable than usual, and the hero is trying to use that to his advantage. He wants to buy time for Deku by manipulating All for One into fighting his old rival instead of heading out to locate Shigaraki as soon as possible. All Might also wants to trick All for One into making mistakes and reckless decisions by provoking him into becoming even more angry and emotional. It's been absolutely awesome seeing All Might in action once again. Especially since this is not just some minor battle with low stakes. This is an extremely important fight against the arch-villain All for One himself. And seeing All Might using shoot style to smash All for One in the face at the end of the last chapter was not only epic, but also heartwarming. Even though All Might was the greatest hero in history, and even though he was a teacher at UA, he is still actively learning from his own students, and he is incorporating their fighting styles and techniques into his own fighting style. That shows how much All Might appreciates and respects his students. The latest chapter starts off with All Might still holding the advantage in the fight, primarily due to the impressive power of his armor and other support items. This is the kind of power that All for One simply wasn't counting on, because for All for One, it's all about quirks. The villain severely underestimated All Might due to him being quirkless, and he is definitely paying the price right now. The hero continues his strategy of trying to provoke All for One by mocking him, and he says that this feels wrong because a man who is over 55 years old shouldn't be beating up a young man, meaning the de-aged All for One. All Might believes that All for One fell victim to his emotions, and especially the hatred he tried to cultivate in order to one day steal One for All. As we know, after generations of failing to steal One for All for One concluded that only someone with immense hatred will be able to overwhelm the vestiges and steal One for All. All Might feels that he can use this hatred to his advantage by provoking All for One until he loses his cool and makes a costly mistake. So, All Might continues pounding on All for One while mocking him at the same time. He says, "Demon Lord, that's the funniest joke I've ever heard. Even a quirkless man can take you head on." This provocation hits deep because All for One had always dreamed of becoming a supervillain Demon Lord ever since he was a kid who read comic books. All for One is clearly triggered by this insult, and he uses 6 different quirks at once, which causes a massive explosion of power that destroys multiple large buildings in the process. All Might survives the explosion by engaging his protective utility cape, whose power has been nicknamed Dark Shadow in honor of Tokoyami. The cape itself is severely damaged by the explosion, but it has done its job, and All Might is able to continue fighting, although he did suffer some injuries on his left wrist and collarbone. Despite taking some damage, All Might is pleased because he can tell that his taunts are working. When All for One activated those 6 quirks at once, it was clear that he was just combining them at random. Before now, he would always use carefully thought out and pre-planned quirk combos, but now he is no longer his normal cold and calculating self. He is clearly angry and unhinged, and instead of planning out his moves, he is throwing out wild Hail Mary attacks. All Might activates maximum motion assist on his armor in order to compensate for the damage he sustained, and then he continues to engage All For One head on, which genuinely surprises the villain. All For One is confident in his belief that the quirkless, middle-aged All Might is nothing but a worthless piece of trash, and he doesn't know why wearing an iron garbage bag has suddenly given the hero all this confidence. As soon as the villain is able to significantly damage the armor, All Might will be done for. Unlike a person and their quirk, a suit of armor cannot surpass its limits. Once it cracks and breaks, it's useless. But All Might is fully aware of this, and he knew all of this coming into the fight. We then see a quick flashback of what might be the very first time Toshinori met his master, Nana Shimura. As Nana is taking down a bunch of villains, she turns and sees a boy standing behind her. This is Toshinori back when he was still quirkless. But even though he was quirkless, he was holding a metal pipe in his hands and attempting to help by beating the villains with the pipe. Toshinori looks up at the floating Nana with great admiration. And this could be the very moment he decided to become a pro hero, just like Nana. To me, this looks like one of the first moments the two of them ever met, because if you look at their expressions, they don't seem to know each other. And it would make sense if this was how they met. This kind of reminds me of All Might witnessing Deku trying to save Bakugo despite being quirkless, so this could be the moment when Nana first noticed Toshinori as he tried to fight against a bunch of dangerous villains despite being quirkless. Back in the present, All Might throws a punch right at All For One's forehead, but this time the villain doesn't seem to be affected. He looks at All Might with deranged eyes and tells him that he won't fall for the hero's pathetic plan. All For One says that his victory is assured and that he has plenty of time to take out the trash. But All Might isn't giving up. As more support items seem to fly up towards him, All Might roars, "Stop making excuses. Honestly, it's embarrassing." And that is how this chapter comes to an end. This was another intense and interesting chapter, and All Might's strategy of provoking All For One definitely seems to be working. Tsukauchi and the cops thought that All For One would wreck All Might in a matter of seconds, but here we are quite some time later, and not only is All Might holding his own, but he is successfully pressuring All For One into losing his cool and making reckless moves, like firing off 6 random quirks at once. All Might is learning from his students, he's combining different powers in smart and strategic ways, and he is successfully getting under All For One's skin. Logically, All For One should be on his way to locating Shigaraki right now, but he isn't. And that alone means that All Might is winning, at least for now. However, if you look carefully, this chapter may be a lot deeper and a lot more tragic than it appears at first glance. There are some serious potential death flags here for All Might, and the theory that All Might is about to sacrifice his life for the next generation is becoming more and more believable with each passing chapter. Last chapter, we were reminded of Sir Night-Eye's prophecy that All Might would die in a brutal battle against a villain. And in this chapter, we saw All Might mentioning how he's already an older man who's lived a sizable, accomplished life, as if to remind us that if he dies now, it won't be so bad. We also had important aspects of his life literally flashing before his eyes, as we saw with the Nana flashback. Many decades ago, Toshinori was the quirkless kid who desperately wanted to become a hero. But now there is a new generation ready to take his place, including Deku and all the other hero students that All Might loves and respects so much that he based his armor suit powers on their quirks. It really does feel like All Might's character arc is coming full circle and reaching its natural conclusion. He is passing the baton to the next generation. So yeah, All Might may be about to make the ultimate sacrifice right here and now against All For One, thereby fulfilling Sir Night-Eye's prophecy. But even if he does die here, All Might knows that there are worthy heroes of the next generation who will take his place and take care of Japan after he is gone. That said though, I don't want to make it sound like All Might's death is inevitable or anything, because it's not. I also thought that Endeavor dying together with Dabi in their fiery battle would be the most powerful conclusion to his complex character arc, but as of right now, it looks like Endeavor survived, albeit just barely. We can't assume that someone as important as All Might will really die, but it's definitely a possibility, and I think that Horikoshi wants us to think that the symbol of peace may not be long for this world. Whether that's good foreshadowing or misdirection, only time will tell. Okay, real talk time. I need you guys to call it down in the comments. Does All For One win this? Does All Might win? Or do they both take each other out? Also, could All Might's taunting of All For One potentially backfire? The more unhinged All For One becomes, the more destructive he is going to become. So if he's pushed too far, he might end up destroying an entire city or something before he finally goes down. Let's hope All Might doesn't just make All For One mad but then loses, and All For One still gets to Deku and Shigaraki, only he's more angry and unhinged than ever before. That would be bad for everyone involved, especially with all the quirks that All For One still has in his possession. If you enjoyed this MHA video, don't ignore my epic MHA playlist that will keep you swimming in heroes and villains while you wait for the next manga chapter to drop. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like to let me know. And if you are one of the over 50% of people who watch my videos but haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a big favor and subscribe right now. We are trying to awaken the full potential of our quirk here on the channel by hitting 2 million subscribers, so every single subscription counts.